You ever wonder if there's like a secret formula to making a relationship last? Well, for decades, relationship science has been trying to find one. And for a long, long time, it really seemed like one researcher had completely cracked the code. With a number so specific, so confident, it became a legend. So let's get into it. And this is the number 94%. Get this. That's the accuracy with which Dr. John Gottman, a giant in the world of marriage research, claimed he could predict if a couple would get divorced. Just think about that for a second. A 15-minute chat could supposedly tell you a couple's future with almost perfect certainty. But how? And maybe the bigger question is it even true? So this wild claim came out of a place they famously called the Love Lab. It's exactly what it sounds like. Gottman and his team would bring in couples and just watch them. They recorded everything, coding their conversations, their facial expressions, even their heart rates. They weren't looking for big romantic moments. No, they were looking for patterns in the little everyday conflicts. And what they found were 4 communication habits that were so destructive, he gave them a pretty dramatic name: the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. First up, you've got criticism, which isn't just complaining. It's attacking your partner's character. Then there's contempt. That's criticism mixed with disgust. It's things like eye-rolling, sarcasm, and it's the single biggest predictor of divorce. Third is defensiveness, which is basically just shifting blame. And last, there's stonewalling. That's when one partner just completely shuts down, builds a wall, and refuses to engage. If these 4 were hanging around, Gottman said the end was probably near. I mean, it's a really compelling story, right? And it made Gottman a household name. But here's the thing about science. When you make a huge claim, you better believe it's going to get a huge amount of scrutiny. And pretty soon, that 94% prediction found itself right in the middle of a huge controversy, one that really started to shake the foundations of this whole idea. The first cracks started to show in a very 21st century place, Wikipedia. Back in 2010, people noticed that paragraphs detailing scientific critiques of Gottman's work kept getting deleted from his page. Well, it turns out the edits were traced to a user who eventually identified themselves as an employee of the Gottman Institute. They even admitted it was a conflict of interest, but made the edits anyway. And that, as you can imagine, kicked off a whole debate about scientific transparency. So what was the big criticism they were so worried about? Well, critics dug it up from Gottman's own published papers. In one 2002 study, for example, Gottman himself admits that their analyses were post hoc. Now, I know that sounds like a bunch of science jargon, but trust me, this little phrase is the key to the entire controversy. So what does post hoc actually mean? Well, it means you're looking for patterns after you already have all the data. It's kind of like shooting an arrow at the side of a barn and then walking up and drawing a perfect bullseye around wherever it landed. Sure, it looks impressive, but you didn't predict anything. It's a great way to find interesting things to study later, to be exploratory, like his paper says. But it's totally different from true prediction, where you have to call your shot before you take it. For critics, this one detail completely changed the game. With that 94% claim now on shaky ground, it kind of opened the door for some other ideas to get more attention. See, while Gottman was focused on what you could see, the behaviors, another approach called emotion-focused therapy, or EFT, started asking a different question. What's going on underneath all that behavior? And you can really see the difference here. The Gottman method is all about skills. It's about giving couples a toolkit to manage their fights better. EFT, though, it goes deeper. It's all about our emotional attachment to each other. It tries to figure out the deep-seated needs and fears that are actually driving the conflict in the first place, with the goal of healing that emotional bond. And you know what? There's some fascinating research on this. A 2025 study looked at how well both therapies did at reducing something called covert relational aggression. You know, stuff like the silent treatment. Now, a lower score is better here, and while both therapies definitely helped compared to the control group, look at the results for emotion-focused therapy. It saw a much bigger drop, which suggests that getting to that root emotional cause is incredibly powerful.
Okay, but what if the problem isn't always the 4 horsemen or some deep attachment wound? What if the biggest threat to your relationship doesn't come from inside the two of you at all, but from the world outside? This brings us to a third and really interesting perspective.
Let's talk about something called dyadic coping. This idea shifts the focus completely. It says that one of the best ways to measure a relationship's strength is to see how the two people work as a team to handle stress from the outside. We're talking about a brutal day at work, a sick parent, money problems. The real test isn't just how you argue, it's how you help each other carry all that stuff. And this can go one of 2 ways, right? On one hand, you have positive dyadic coping. That's when you listen, you show empathy, you tackle the problem together. It's an us against the world mentality. But the flip side is negative coping. That's when one partner's stress is met with hostility or dismissal, or they just make things worse. And the research is clear. Couples who are great at positive dyadic coping are way happier and more stable, no matter what their fight style is. So, we've looked at Gottman's behaviors, EFT's emotions, and this idea of teamwork from dyadic coping. And, it's probably not about picking which one is right. The strongest, most resilient relationships probably pull wisdom from all three. So let's put it all together into a simple toolkit you can actually use. Okay, 3 things. First, from Gottman, practice turning toward bids. A bid is just a small attempt to connect. It could be a sigh, a random comment, anything. Just acknowledging it builds up so much goodwill. Second, from EFT, uncover the emotion. When you're fighting, try to ask yourself, what's the vulnerable feeling underneath this? Is this really about the dirty dishes, or is it about feeling ignored or alone? And third, from dyadic coping, tackle stress as a team. Always frame those outside problems as something you face together.
And all of this kind of brings us to one last thought. Maybe our obsession with predicting divorce has had us asking the wrong question this whole time. That 94% number was so powerful because it promised us certainty. But maybe real strength isn't about having a predictable future. Maybe it's about having a partnership that can handle an unpredictable one. What if the most important thing isn't knowing if you'll make it, but building a relationship that's ready for anything? What if the real question isn't will we last, but rather how will we face the world together?